When you think about high-risk tools in a hospital, what comes to mind? Scalpels, right? Maybe some powerful drugs? But what if I told you one of the biggest dangers is actually hiding in plain sight on every single keyboard?
So, what do you think it is? What's the most dangerous button in a hospital? Seriously, take a guess. An alarm? Something on a life support machine? Nope. The answer is probably something you use dozens, maybe hundreds of times a day without even thinking about it.
It might just be Control V. Yeah, you heard me. The simple paste function. It sounds crazy, right? But in a hospital, that everyday shortcut can turn into a direct, and I mean serious threat to a patient's safety if it's used the wrong way. And that brings us right to the heart of the problem here, what I'm calling the doctor's dangerous shortcut. Look, we all get it. Wards are crazy busy, and it's so tempting to find ways to be more efficient. But the problem is, when that drive for efficiency puts you on a kind of medical autopilot, that's when the risks just go through the roof. This habit has a name. It's called blind copying. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's when you just duplicate a patient's old medical notes into a new entry, but you don't do a fresh, current assessment. You're basically treating old news like it's today's headline. And in medicine, that's a huge no-no. And let me tell you, the stakes are just incredibly high. Doing this can completely hide the fact that a patient is getting worse. It means doctors might be basing life or death decisions on information that's just flat out wrong, and they can totally miss new critical symptoms. It really cuts to the core of patient safety. Okay, so the problem is pretty clear, right? So what's the fix? Well, this is where hospitals are putting some really strict rules in place for patient safety. It's like a new directive for, let's call it digital diligence. Now, the solution isn't to just ban copy-paste altogether. That's not realistic. Instead, there are some really clear rules. On one hand, you've got stuff that's generally safe to copy, things like the active problem list or social history. But, and this is a big but, only if you update it. Then you have the other column, the stuff that must be a fresh entry, every single time. We're talking about the patient's current condition, the physical exam, their vitals. These things are a snapshot in time. You just can't recycle them. And I really want to hammer this home. Even for the safe stuff, there's a huge catch. A copied list of problems is only useful if you're adding the new problems to it. You can't just passively hit Control V and call it a day. You have to actively review it, think about it, and update it. It's a mental task, not just a finger twitch. All right, so to really see how this plays out, let's look at the right way versus the wrong way. We're going to follow a patient's story, but we'll look at it in two different timelines. You'll see how one little choice in how you take notes can literally change everything. So here's the setup. A patient is on day 2 in the hospital, and they suddenly develop shortness of breath. Now, how does the doctor's simple act of writing a note completely change what happens next? Okay, first up, the wrong way. The doctor goes for the blind copy. So the note for day 2 reads, patient comfortable, no complaints, lungs clear. But we know that's not true, don't we? The patient is struggling to breathe. This note is just a carbon copy of yesterday's, and it totally ignores the new life-threatening situation. And the result? It's actually pretty chilling. The patient's condition is getting worse, but it's completely undocumented. And if it's not documented, it's not getting treated. The rest of the medical team looks at that note and has absolutely no idea a crisis is brewing. Okay, now let's flip the script, the correct way. This time, the doctor does a fresh assessment. The note actually says the patient is complaining about shortness of breath. The exam finds crackling sounds in the lungs, and their oxygen has dropped to 92%. See? This note reflects reality, and that makes all the difference. And this is the amazing chain of events that good note-taking kicks off. The new symptoms get documented, the scary vitals get recorded, and because of that, urgent actions are ordered. Get the patient on oxygen, order a chest x-ray. This is life-saving stuff, and it's all driven by taking a moment to be accurate. So, why are we talking about this? Why does it matter so much? Because when you boil it all down, good documentation is really just good communication. It's not just about paperwork for billing or to cover yourself legally. No, it's the actual lifeline of patient care. And this goes way beyond just physical stuff. Every single important action has to be recorded. Did you refer the patient to a specialist? You write it down. Did you perform a procedure? You write it down. Did you have that tough conversation with the family about a poor prognosis? You absolutely have to write that down. It's about creating a clear, ethical story of what happened. And this is where you really see the human side of it all. Just look at this example note. Informed wife about the patient getting worse. Wife understands and agreed. Wow, that's not just a clinical note, is it? That's a record of compassion, of communication. It's a record of showing respect for the people who love the patient.
Because at the end of the day, that's what good notes do. They tell the patient's whole story, not just the numbers and the data, but the human experience of what they're going through. It's the story that connects one doctor to the next nurse, making sure everyone is on the same page, working from the same truth.
So I want to leave you with this final thought. In this digital world we live in, the shortcut is always going to be tempting. So the real question we have to keep asking ourselves is this: how do we make sure that technology is helping, not hindering, the simple, essential, and totally irreplaceable act of one human caring for another?